Shalom and welcome to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and author of the second edition, now available, of the Codice, this incredible thriller that takes you on a journey to the weaponization of DNA. If you don't understand what the conflict is between Islam and Judaism and Christianity, if you don't know what's going to bring the return of Jesus, and you're led into this false belief that it's going to be the church, well, then you haven't read your Bible, because Matthew 23:37 through 39 tells you exactly who is going to call for his return, and Satan knows, going all the way back to Genesis 3:15, who it is he's coming up against, and that's the Jewish Messiah, Jesus. But there is a way to weaponize the DNA. And this is not just a story made up. This is a story that is real, happening today. Weaponized DNA. It's believed that some of the illnesses that the world is facing today were created in laboratories, weaponizing DNA and only affecting certain population groups, certain ethnic groups of people. Well, there is a Y chromosome marker that marks the line of Aaron, and that is who is going to head up the Sanhedrin that's going to call for the return of Jesus. You get rid of him, you get rid of the ones who will bring Jesus back, and Satan rules the world forever. Isn't that been his plan all along? Isn't that what he said? I will ascend to the throne of God. This story tells you how, and one you need to read. $2.99 on Kindle. I know you can afford it, I know you can get it, and I know you'll be fascinated to buy it. 5-star reviews all across the way available to you. Also, if you go to ignitingnation.com, click on my new book, The 7 Laws of Abundant Living, right at the bottom of the page. Take you right to a screen that asks for your email address. We won't send you spam, because spam isn't kosher. But we will send you the first chapter of this book, and delighted to share that with you so that you will hopefully get the rest of the book. Today at this hour, as we do on the first Monday of every month, at the 12 o'clock hour, is the Joe Newby Hour. Joe Newby is the co-author of a book, How Facebook Enables Militant Islamic Jihad. The book is called Banned. And if there were more of an appropriate time than today to talk about what Facebook is doing and Mark Zuckerberg is doing on Facebook, you need to understand that this is where it started. This was the underpinning when he chose sides in this battle that allowed jihadists to recruit, to post, and the social media monarchy has become something that's impacting the lives of millions upon millions of people. And you can read the original story right here in this fact-based, what would you call it? Expose of, there you go, of Facebook, called Banned. Joe Newby, welcome to Revealing the Truth.
Good morning, Eric. It's great to see you again.
Good to see you. Joe is the provocateur, the blogateur, the author of the conservativefiringline.com, and he is a man who is willing to take a frontline position on the political, social, economic, and biblical battles of today. It's called the Conservative Firing Line because it does have a conservative, biblical worldview with almost 105,000 followers. You can be one too. Visit conservativefiringline.com. So, Joe, what's going on with Facebook in this new battle royale between Mark Zuckerberg, now getting ready to be subpoenaed to come testify before Congress about this big Cambridge leak, and what role he's played in all of this?
Well, keep in mind, Eric, we've got video of him telling the BBC back in 2009 that you and I, any one of us who are on Facebook, that we own our own data, and we can share our data with whomever we choose. Meanwhile, we learned that, of course, Facebook and Google, they were pretty much right there in the White House when Barack Hussein Obama, managed to win the White House, not once but twice. all the while using partly information on users gleaned from Facebook. And of course, the left-wing media back in the day, back when this happened, they were ecstatic. They praised Obama. Oh, how brilliant Obama was to mine this data, to get this data. Obama was the most intelligent person on earth to have done this. Now, all of a sudden, we have a group who was supposedly doing the same thing, but ostensibly for Donald Trump. And now that that's happened, why, that's a crime. We can't allow this to happen. So, and it's not just the U.S. government, Eric, but the U.K. government wants to talk to Zuckerberg. Israel wants to talk to Zuckerberg, as does the EU. They want to talk with Zuckerberg as well. And keep in mind, and this is something that Adina and I pointed out in our book, back in 2015, Mark Zuckerberg was caught on a hot microphone telling German Chancellor Merkel that he was doing what he could to stifle stories critical of these Muslim migrants that were flooding and continue to flood Europe in what many now call an invasion. And Zuckerberg, by the way, has also suggested that the United States adopt Germany's immigration policies, and of course everything that goes along with that. He's a big open borders guy, always has been, big time leftist, always has been. He's called for a government guaranteed income for everybody and so on. I mean, this guy is as far left as they come, which is pretty common in Silicon Valley these days. But there's more to this story as well, and this is the one part that I'm concerned that Congress has not touched upon, and that is the impact that Facebook has had on websites across the internet. Back in February, I think it was February 6th, they put in an algorithm change. And of course, we're used to this happening. They do it fairly frequently. But as a result of this particular algorithm change, what we have seen is that conservative sites like mine, like Breitbart, Independent Journal Review, a few others, have seen our traffic drop down considerably.
Right.
At the same time, liberal sites like CNN have seen their traffic increase. And so I don't think there's anything accidental about this at all. There have actually been two separate studies. One just took a look at interactions on Facebook, and they found that, of course, interactions on conservative sites on Facebook, like ours and others, have gone down considerably. They, doing everything that they can to keep conservative information and conservative articles out of people's news feeds, even when they request them, even when they go to the page and hit the like button and go through all those steps to get the information. Facebook is doing what it can to keep that out of people's news feeds, and instead substituting it for what Facebook deems is quote unquote quality.
Well, Joe, it's gotten to the point where it was so between Facebook and Twitter, it was so impactful to us as a program that we lost over 100,000 social media followers between the two.
Right.
That brought us under 500,000, under 500,000. When you take our reach on WND-TV, we reach another almost million, so we were at about 1.5 to 2 million audience. Right. That puts us in certain time slots. That's what Fox brings in. That's what CNN brings in.
Right.
And our messaging has been consistently conservative.
Hmm.
consistently biblically based. We consistently interview authors who have a biblical worldview, and we actually had to go out and hire, retain a new marketing firm
Right.
to completely revamp all of our messaging so that we can ride in under that new algorithm
Right.
that's been put in place. That it used to be that you and I would look at a demographic of 45 over, male or female,
Right.
lives in the Midwest, and we would say, oh man, we got our demographics, we're just going to target those people. Now
Right.
it's no longer what we used to know as demographics. It's been completely changed
Hmm.
by content and by messaging and the linkage between the two and engagement.
Right.
And the where you're seeing the engagement are in people like this David Hogg, uh, who is driving engagements and becoming a social media icon, as well as a liberal left icon. Uh, and it's simply because he was able to use his platform uh, to take advantage of the new algorithm. Everything
Well,
he
and
says and does meets their standard.
and not only that, Eric, but you have to remember now, and you touched on this. Uh, David Hogg is essentially the left's new quasi pseudo messiah, if you will. It used to be Barack Obama, then it was Hillary Clinton, now it's David Hogg, and of course CNN and all these other networks. Of course, they give him a platform. They allow him to smear millions of NRA members. They allow him to do things like smear Florida lawmakers as child murderers. They give him that platform, and they allow him to say pretty much whatever he wants. Um, Very rarely do they ever fact check him. Very rarely do they ever rein him in. In fact, just recently, Brian Stelter admitted that he let David Hogg lie during his February 25th CNN interview. Um, and we've got the transcript. The transcript is readily available online. Anybody can go out there and read it. Stelter initially tried to claim that no, he fact checked and corrected Hogg once or twice, but in reality, what he fact checked Hogg on was something really minor compared to the other smears that he's made. He's gone out and, like I said, he's falsely claimed multiple times that the NRA sells guns. They don't. He has claimed that Dana Loesch and Dana Lash and the 5 million NRA members have blood on their hands, when in fact no one in the NRA is responsible for what happened at the Parkland shooting.
Right.
Um, he forgets that it was an NRA member who stopped a shooting in Texas, brought that shooter down. On and on it goes. He has made and not just him, but his other fellow Parkland activists. Cameron Kasky, for example, has said some outrageous things. All of these people have said outrageous things. David Hogg, during that thing in Washington, D.C., where he, basically clicked his heels and threw up that raised fist salute. Um, I got to tell you, Eric, I watched that speech, and it reminded me of speeches that I saw given by the former German dictator who was responsible for murdering 6 million Jews. Um, to me, excuse me, and I've had people say, well, you shouldn't say that. Well, I'm going to say it. Okay. I'm a student of history. And when I looked at his speech, when I looked at listened to the tone of his speech and the words he used and the way he put it together, and the wild gestures during that speech, And that raised fist thing at the end, that's exactly what it reminded me of, quite frankly. And there are a lot of other people who have said pretty much the same thing. There was an op-ed put out by Cheryl Chumley over at the Washington Times,
Right.
and you know she's brilliant. I gotta tell you, I'm going to give her a cheap, shameless plug here because I love reading her work. She's excellent, and she came out here. What was it, this last weekend or late last week? And in no uncertain terms said, you know what, he would have made a good brown shirt back in the day.
Right.
That he missed his calling only by a few decades and an ocean. And there are more and more people that have come to that conclusion. And quite frankly, Eric, my view of it, my read of it, listen, you know, looking at what people say on social media, is they are frankly sick and tired of this guy, and they simply wish that he would go away.
And Joe, as we take a look at this upcoming midterm election, it is an issueless party now, the Democratic Party. It is a party that has no platform. It is a group of individuals that are only in a reactive mode, that they are developing positions du jour. There is no platform, and if there were a platform, it's just it's kind of like the Palestinian situation that says we don't love the land of Israel. That's not why we want the land of Israel. It's because we hate the Jews.
Right.
That's the only reason we want Israel, is because we hate the Jews. That's the only reason that Democrats want to get into office, is because they hate the Republicans and Donald Trump.
Exactly. Well, and it's not just all Republicans, Eric. It's only certain ones. It's the Republicans who have the audacity to stick to a conservative agenda, and it's the Republicans who support Donald Trump. Now, here's the thing, though. You know, you have these Republicans, these weak-kneed, limp-wristed Republicans who think, you know, like Jeff Flake, who think that if they adopt Democrat Party talking points and reach out across the aisle and adopt some of that, some of their language, they think that they're currying favor with the Democrats. And as we're seeing with Laura Ingraham, that's not the case at all. Democrats are not interested in anything Republicans have to say. They simply want to rule, like you say, because they hate Donald Trump, and that's their whole platform. If Trump's for it, we're against it. You know, if Trump came out with a cure for cancer today, Democrats would be up in arms. That's how bad that it's gotten.
You know, Joe, America has changed. We are no longer Americans, patriotic, proud to be an American kind of country. We've taken this position where we are not going to give our president an opportunity to build on an economy that was devastated. It was left in shambles. And we're now in a recovery mode that only parallels Ronald Reagan.
Right.
It is as Reagan-esque as it could possibly be. And the defense system, both in warfare, traditional warfare, and cyber defense, which is now a new dimension. In the 80s, we didn't have cyber warfare. Now we have huge cyber warfare, cyber breaches. As a matter of fact, right now, if you were to try to look at my email, I bounce off of a server in the Czech Republic.
Right.
If you looked me up and tried to ping me, you're going to find me in a server in the Czech Republic. If you go to my phone, all right, my phone is in Auckland, New Zealand,
Right.
because I run a virtual private network that says you can't hack me because you can't find me. You're going to be trying to hack a server that is just one of my. Look, I watched enough spy TV, and I asked the question, how do they do that? And they said, oh, that's a VPN. And I said, well, is that available? They said, yeah, for $19.99 a year, you can get your own VPN. And I'm like, I want that. I want to be in the Czech Republic right now. I want to be in Auckland, New Zealand. I want to be unhackable. And so if they can't find me, they can't get to me. And I like that a lot.
Sure.
There is, for the first time, I hear a little rumblings of Henry Kissinger in some of the statements. I hear a little of the rumblings of Dwight Eisenhower. I hear a little bit of the rumblings of Ronald Reagan. It's kind of Donald Trump is the best of in a couple of really critical areas. And I don't think Donald Trump believes that the United States needs a federal government.
Well, I would say perhaps not the way this federal government is operating. That's for sure. What we had, and this was, this goes back to, when he was talking about draining the swamp, and I think he got in there and realized, oh, wait a minute, this is, there's an awful lot of alligators in here,
Yeah.
And it turned out to be something that he just simply could not drain within the course of a few days, and now we're finding that out. However, I will say this: with what's been happening at the FBI, with this Peter Strzok and Linda Page, with those texts, with what we've learned about Andrew McCabe and some of the other goings on within the FBI, we're starting to realize just how deep this goes. And keep in mind, this is not an indictment of the average FBI agent who works very hard to get the job done.
Right.
There is, I think, a very real problem within the leadership of some of these agencies. It's like what we saw at the IRS when Lois Lerner was there, and she kept stonewalling, even though she admitted that, yes, Obama's IRS was targeting conservative Tea Party Christian groups and so forth. And now we're seeing just how deep this goes within some of these agencies. So it's going to take a while to root all this out, I think. But I think at the end of it, we'll be definitely much better off once it's done and over with.
Well, we're talking with Joe Newby, the Joe Newby Hour, 12 o'clock p.m. Central Time, the first Monday of every month. We're with Joe, who is the editor of Conservative Firing Line and co-author of the book called Banned: How Facebook Enables Militant Islamic Jihad. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about this current omnibus, this current budgeting, what's happening with the future of our economy, and North Korea, Russia, what's going on right now along the borders of Gaza, in Israel. These are the real issues of the day, but yet many of those are being overlooked, and they happen to be the core of both biblical prophecy as well as relevant to the news of the day. We'll be right back. Shalom. I'm the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, Executive Director of Igniting a Nation and host of the daily TV program Revealing the Truth, seen live every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time at www.ianbn.com, and then replayed throughout the day and night via our website. All of our segments can be seen on the Igniting a Nation YouTube channel. Since our launch in January of this year, we've expanded our global reach to over 54 countries with a social media following of over 125,000. Our commitment is to bring you the most in-depth interviews with authors, subject matter experts, and thought leaders from around the world. We have interviewed guests from Israel, Brazil, England, India, and all across North America. All of our authors are featured on the Books and Media page on our website, www.ianbn.com. There you can find a direct link to the book you want to order, and we receive a small commission directly from Amazon. There is no cost to you for this service. In addition to our daily teachings and interviews, we make available to you the archive of all of the interviews on our YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram channels. Our live program is available from our homepage, and there is never a charge to you for any of this access. We made the decision long ago that we would remain a commercial-free resource that would not be influenced by any pressure from any outside company. There are only two ways that we are able to continue to operate this ministry and provide you with the only live 4-hour daily Christian television talk show program. The first is through your support and tax-deductible contributions to Igniting a Nation. These can be made directly through the donate button on the website or sent through the mail to Igniting a Nation, 2700 Corporate Drive, Suite 120, Birmingham, Alabama, 35242. The other way we support the program is by offering you a unique opportunity to have access to over 10 years worth of teachings on a subscription basis. The teaching archives contains all of my prior sermons, Torah studies, prophecy in the news videos, and much more for the low subscription price of $5 per month. This subscription grants you unlimited access to over 800 hours of content not available elsewhere and is updated weekly with the most current prophecy classes. In addition to 20 hours of original TV programming each weekday, we invite you to join us live every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday evenings for our Prophecy in the News classes. The times and locations are listed on our events page on the website www.ianbn.com. Every day, you and I are faced with the challenge of where we will go to hear the truth. We are committed to bring you the only program of its kind that covers the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. We cannot do this without your support. Since we launched on January 5th, 2017, we have aired over 300 individual teachings, interviews, and commentaries not available anywhere else. We are now working side by side with almost every major Christian publishing house to bring you the most in-depth feature interviews possible. Our 1-hour features address every subject that affects the believer's life. We are hearing of salvations from the Middle East, Africa, and all across the United States. Lives are being changed every day, and we have only just begun. Our mission is to become your trusted resource and grant you access to the people, tools, and information you need to grow in your relationship with the Lord. You can help us by liking us on social media and through your financial support. We know you have many choices in who you support, but we are prayerfully asking you to consider helping us keep revealing the truth, true to our calling, to cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth like no other program available. Donate today and help us bring the message to the four corners of the earth. Visit www.ianbn.com and donate, buy a book, or subscribe to our teaching archives. Without you, we do not exist. Shalom and welcome back to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and my host for this hour, the Joe Newby Hour, is Joe Newby, who is the editor of the conservativefiringline.com, conservative blog, and author of Banned: How Facebook Enables Militant Islamic Jihad. Joe, welcome back to the program.
Good to be here, Eric.
Joe, are we a nation that's being held hostage by media plants like a David Hogg, media plants like a Stormy Weathers or Dusty
Daniels, yes.
Stormy Daniels, that wind up consuming the headlines of all of the liberal media, which means that the conservative media can't help but point to how ludicrous the liberal, and this is what I'm seeing going on between Fox and MSNBC and CNN, is the commentary is about what the liberal commentators are covering, and we're not getting any fresh new look. We're getting responses to, so that means that the narrative is being controlled by this fake news or these. This week it's David Hogg. Next week it's going to could be Louis Farrakhan again. Or Jesse Jackson again, or Al Sharpton again. We have this kind of cycle, and when every now and then we throw a couple new players into the roulette wheel of who's going to be the distraction of the day. And it seems like sites like yours are calling it out for what it is, but also exposing many other things that are going on. This issue with Russia, England, Israel, Gaza, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Erdogan's son rising up in power. Nobody's paying attention to any of this kind of stuff, except for those that want to call Israel the occupiers, and the Palestinians are the victims.
Yeah, right. Well, and I got to tell you, Eric, you touched on something very important. And I hate to say it, but you know what? We've been kind of guilty of that ourselves, even though we've tried to step out into some of these other issues. Faye Higby here just the other day did something about this caravan of illegal immigrants working their way up through Mexico, getting set to hit the southern border. We've hit some other issues as well. A lot of my time has been focused on this David Hogg character, like I told you during the break. I mean, and you're right. There is a lot of these distractions. Are a lot of these distractions going on. I've generally tried to stay away from the whole Stormy Daniels thing. I really don't see how that's relevant, quite frankly, to anything. She had a relationship with Donald Trump many years ago. I think, what was it, a decade or something? They got together. Big deal. Okay. It's not like Donald Trump has ever advertised himself as a huge family issues, family values type of a guy. He's always been the very worldly type of businessman. And now if it was Mike Pence, then I think you'd have a story.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
But it's not. It's Donald Trump. Okay. And she even admitted that it was consensual. Okay. Big deal. So, that's not going to affect our paychecks. That's not going to affect our constitutional rights whatsoever. David Hogg, however, the reason I've spent so much time focusing on David Hogg is because I do view him, not just him, but all of those who, quite frankly, worship the kid as some kind of a demigod. I see him, quite frankly, as a very clear and present danger to our freedom and to our republic, and not just the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms, Eric. We're seeing we're seeing him stifling people's speech. If you criticize him, if you say something he doesn't like, Do you remember? I don't know if you've ever watched the Twilight Zone much, but
Sure.
there was a. If you do you remember that episode where there was this kid who was kind of like a tyrant, who would sentence family members who said something
Yes.
to him critically, and he would sentence them to the cornfield, and out they would go. That's kind of, I think, where we are with this David Hogg character. And so now you have him with the full backing of George Soros's Media Matters, being fed, by the media, and here he is trying to silence and destroy a cancer survivor, a foster mother to what, three children that she adopted, trying to destroy her entire career because she had the audacity to respond to something that he himself tweeted out several times. The fact that he was rejected by 4 colleges.
Right.
I haven't touched on those tweets, but I have touched on his response to hers. And her tweet, she apologized, which in my opinion was a mistake. She should never have. Um, because that's all the left needs. They once they get that, then it's open season. Um, and her tweet to begin with, Eric, wasn't even anything worth going nutso about. It
Right.
was, she just mentioned basically that, well, you know what, maybe your GPA wasn't up to those colleges' standards. You know, um, and this is where we are now. This is where we are. Meanwhile, you have hosts over at CNN, producers, what have you, people over at CNN, um, attacking Kyle Kashuv, and I don't know if that's how you pronounce the kid's name, but he's the one student who's been out there, one of the activists, but he's pro Second Amendment, and he has, in my view, exhibited much more maturity than any of these people running around with David Hogg. And look at how he gets treated. So I see a very clear double standard, and I see that from what I'm seeing there, there is, in my view, a very real danger. If they succeed in getting Laura Ingraham off of Fox News because of this, then no one is safe, quite frankly. So I've had people on social media tell me, well, we should just ignore him. And you know what, Eric, quite frankly, maybe a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, maybe there would be something to that. But now, no, I don't think so. To me, ignoring David Hogg and his crew is a bit like ignoring flames when your house
Right.
catches on fire. We can't afford to ignore him. We need to confront, we need to correct, and we need to stand up to this because it's not going to end.
Joe, you're closer to the West Coast than I am. We're here in Alabama. You're there in Idaho. The concept of sanctuary cities, sanctuary states, is one that's very vibrant in that Pacific Northwest region. I heard over the weekend the comment made that the sanctuary city laws would be tantamount to me committing a murder in Birmingham and driving over the border to Florida. And even though there's a warrant issued for me, that Florida wouldn't have to acknowledge it because it was a sanctuary state. But, oh, wait a second, I'm a U.S. citizen. They
Right.
have to send me back, but I would get privilege if I was an undocumented, unlawfully here, illegal alien. They would not send me back for that same crime. All of a sudden, the non-citizen is being afforded rights and privileges that put them above the law of the land, which is only, to me, a gateway to Sharia.
Pretty much. Pretty much. Now, Idaho rejects sanctuary cities. Idaho is quite conservative, so we don't tolerate that sort of thing here. Um, but it does impact us quite a bit. Washington is quite liberal, although they're not a sanctuary state yet. Um, California, however, is the real problem.
Right.
And what you have going on in California, and this is just my take on it, is you have a liberal governor and a liberal attorney general who have and by the way, Democrats in the California Assembly and the state Senate, liberal Democrats down there who have quite literally put illegal aliens over American citizens. And just this past year, they passed a law down there. I think what was it, SB 54 or something like that, basically making California a sanctuary state. And it's pretty draconian. That whole bill is pretty draconian. And so now you've got the Attorney General of California who has already told employers that he's going to be arresting them if they abide by federal immigration law. The Orange County, the sheriff of Orange County, he also threatened her,
Right.
And threatened to arrest her for obeying federal immigration law. So the situation has gotten to the point. You've got one city in Orange County that has joined Donald Trump's lawsuit against the state of California. You also have a city down in San Diego County, I believe, Escondido, which is also considering the same. And you have the same thing happening in San Diego County, where they are now looking at the possibility of joining that lawsuit. And I haven't heard yet as to whether they're actually going to do it or not. But it looks like there is a rebellion of sorts beginning to brew within at least some of the more conservative enclaves in California. I used to live in California, so I know not all of California is nuts. Okay. There's a lot of good people in San Diego and in Orange County who are quite frankly fed up with this trash. And as you may recall here a while back, there's always something going on. People down there talking about splitting California into two states, one that's run by the radical left, and the other that's run by normal people, to put it mildly. Nancy Pelosi, of course, she comes out of San Francisco. That's a city where you've actually got maps that tell people where the human droppings are, so they don't step in it. I mean, that is just so hard for me to compute in my mind that's how far that California has gone. It's sad what's going on down there. But you're right. It's all due to this notion that, well, we have to be inclusive and we have to be tolerant, so we're going to welcome in all of these illegals at the expense of American citizens. And I think a growing number of people are getting fed up with that.
I expected that after the election, that those who during the campaign, before the nominee, the Marco Rubios, the Ted Cruzes, the Rick Santorums, were going to be vocal parts of the party that continued to bring the messaging as senators, active senators. Santorum wasn't active, but certainly could re-enter the race. The seat
Sure.
comes open in November. That we were going to have this cohesive, conservative voice in America that was finally going to be unstifled or unbridled, and that there was going to be a certain unity among the populace that stood behind Donald Trump, which was the overwhelming middle American who says that no, we don't want. If we write a law that says you can be here illegally and murder somebody, and you can leave the state or leave the county, and we won't stop you, then you're going to have to reverse the laws of, if I'm a citizen and I murder somebody, why can't I leave the jurisdiction and not be prosecuted? It's like having two constitutions, but we're not crying out. I mean, they're talking about a constitutional convention for the repeal of the Second Amendment, for God's sake.
Right.
And we should be looking at the fact that the Immigration and Naturalization Act of 1952 is on the books and it's not being enforced.
Right, right.
All the laws that people are talking about as debatable already exist. They're just not being enforced. And that falls on the Attorney General. But he's got a huge mess on his hands. He's got the Mueller investigation, which has been tainted from day one.
Right.
He now has another investigation into FISA abuse by Loretta Lynch and by James Comey and by that cabal. What's going to come out of this, and what are they going to find? Now, the problem I have is that Watergate was already resolved, closed, and impeached, resigned, and new president installed during the same period of time that they've been gathering millions of pages of documents. Watergate was open and closed, and a new president took office in this same window of time, and we don't seem to be anywhere near the end of this.
That's I hear what you're saying, Eric, and I understand the frustration, but you have to understand that's a bit, like in my mind, that's kind of like comparing apples to oranges. Watergate, in my view, was pretty much an open and shut case from the beginning. Okay, there was no doubt that it happened. The evidence was pretty clear that it happened, so it didn't take much to bring that to some kind of a resolution, comparatively speaking, okay? Here, you have something that, in my view, has been cooked up by one political campaign, and I mean quite literally cooked up, made up out of whole cloth by one political campaign and a sitting administration in order to destroy, in the beginning, to destroy the other political campaign, and then after Trump won, used to destroy the incoming president, and now it's being used to destroy a sitting president in what can only be considered, in my mind, to be a coup d'etat. That's what we're seeing happening here. Now, in my view, there was never a crime for Mueller to investigate. In my mind, there was no crime. They still have not come up with any evidence whatsoever of any collusion with Russia. So now Mueller, in my view, is trying to save face. And I mean, how far back is he going to go? Is he going to go all the way back to when Donald Trump was in kindergarten? That's pretty much where we're going with this. He's branching out into all these rabbit trails. All of this is based upon a lie, a manufactured, cooked up dossier that was paid for by the Clinton campaign to, smear Donald Trump.
Right.
And so now you've got the Muellers and what people now call the deep state, which are now, in my view, trying to save their own face, because I think deep down they have to realize that when push comes to shove, their goose is basically cooked. And so they have to save face with, the money masters, the people, pushing all this. They've got to justify their existence somehow. So they've got to come up with something, even if they have to make it up, or even if they have to twist and make come up with process crimes, things that really aren't crimes per se. Um, but like Michael Flynn. He's been accused of lying to the FBI,
Right.
and look at what's happened to him. He has been literally destroyed, financially destroyed. Um, so I think we're talking about two completely separate things. Watergate, hey, it was real. We had the evidence. That was pretty much open and shut. This this is something totally different. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this. As long as I've been watching politics and following politics, I've never seen anything quite like this.
It's extraordinary. Now they're hoping to get a second prosecutor involved to talk about the Uranium One, the Clinton Foundation, and the Clinton emails.
Right.
It's about time that investigation began. I think that would parallel Watergate just a little bit closer, because that evidence is real, tangible, and quite obvious that there's been a lot of collusion along the way involving
Absolutely.
Comey, Lynch, and Mueller himself is a part of this cabal, and action should be taken.
I agree. I agree.
Action should be taken. Joe, we've run out of time, but again, I want to encourage people to visit conservativefiringline.com. You're going to hear fresh opinions, unbridled conservative point of view about the issues that are most pressing for the day. Great team over there. We know Adina Kutnicki and Joe Newby, because together they wrote the book Banned, How Facebook Enables Militant Islamic Jihad. If you want the unbridled truth, if you want opinions from those that are watching this on a day-to-day basis and continuing to follow stories in a way that you can't follow it, sign up for the conservativefiringline.com newsletter and get on their mailing list. Join over 140,000 other people that have stood alongside of them and support their work. They generate advertising revenue and, of course, always open to contributions. But Joe, thank you again for hosting the Joe Newby Hour. You can hear Joe this time, 12 o'clock noon Central Time, the first Monday of every month, for the Joe Newby Hour, as we share conservative, biblical worldview of the events that are happening here across America and throughout the world. Joe Newby, thanks again for being with us here on Revealing the Truth.
Thank you, Eric. It's a pleasure always talking with you.
All right, thank you so much. And that brings to an end our live broadcast day, but that doesn't mean we go off the air. You can follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and get the replays on WND-TV. If you're not signed up for our YouTube channel, it's Igniting a Nation. Just click that box, subscribe, and notify, and you'll get the update of every new video that we upload to that site. Over 700 of them now, and just adding to them on a daily basis. Until we see you right back here tomorrow, live in our studio at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, we bid you shalom.